Welcome to Built by Grace. I'm your host, Gracelyn Martinez, and I am joined by my co-host and very handsome husband, Frankie Martinez. We're excited to invite you to our brand new podcast. We are a high-performing real estate husband and wife team operating in sunny California and raising our 5 children. Get ready for raw, unscripted discussions where we share our insights and experiences on everything from life in our project home, the joys and challenges of raising our kids, and the behind the scenes of working together.
Join us as we navigate the highs and lows of balancing work, family, and everything in between. From the common questions we get about our business to the interesting stories from the impactful people we meet on our journey. We'll cover it all, so buckle up and get ready for a peek into our daily lives where the laughter and struggles are all part of the journey. Subscribe now to stay tuned for all the candid conversations and real talk on Built by Grace.
I want to start out this podcast on our very first episode by thanking our sponsors at Affirm Capital for providing their space to us. And also, if you're looking for lending options, you really want to call Affirm Capital here in Fresno. And then also Palm Creations for helping us set up today for our first podcast and getting the equipment set up and coming early and really taking the time to put this together. So thank you, Palm Creations. And thank you, Affirm Capital.
Yeah, thank you very much. Without these wonderful partners, this wouldn't be an option for us to do. And we hope that you enjoy it. And we hope that everyone continues to tune in.
Okay, so this podcast is going to be about one of the main questions that we have in our business, which is how to get your real estate license. And I went back and I was shuffling through some key takeaways from when I got my real estate license, which is in 2004 is when I got my real estate principles certificate. It was October of 2004. And so I shortly, after I did the principles and the real estate practice, I was allowed to take a test. When I got my real estate license back in 2005, I had started the process in 2004 at a career college. It was called California Career College in Manteca. And I was in what they labeled as a crash course in real estate. It was over a 3-week period and it took 14 days. I had to go and travel there in person and take the what?
Sorry, my microphone is wanting to drop down. And I think it's funny that she's going into this, but just so everyone is well aware, Grayson was literally in our garage earlier today looking for her actual certificate that she was really trying to find because I think she wanted to bring it in.
No, I was going to bring it in because a lot of times on previous discussions, I've said I've been licensed since 2004. That's when I passed my courses, but I wasn't actually issued my license until January of 2005. So I just had to validate it because I was like, okay, my issuance date is this. And a weird thing had happened. I was talking to somebody else about getting their real estate license, and they had asked me, is that okay for you? Are you?
Yeah, no,
okay.
We're good. I'll make it work. When we talked about raw and unfiltered, we talked about this. Look, this mic really doesn't want me to talk today, but we'll get it figured out. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. Tell your wonderful story about going to real estate college.
Okay, so I went to California Career College. I did a 3-week crash course, which was a 14-day course over the course of 3 weeks where I went in person and I got my real estate principles and real estate practice completed. I got those certificates in October of 2004, and that allowed me to take an 18-month conditional license test. And this is something recently I found out went away. I was like, oh yeah, I got my conditional license at this time. And no one knew what I was talking about. So I researched it this morning. Actually, it was 2013 when they stopped issuing conditional salesperson's license. Did you know that?
I had no idea what a conditional license was. I didn't get a conditional license. I have a microphone that wants to hang out and go this way. All right, I'm going to hold the mic like I'm a rap star.
Why is that one doing that? And it didn't do it the whole time.
Oh, it's because the bass.
Oh, you know what? Here. Keep going. Tell us all about your conditional license and what happened with being a conditional real estate agent and how long that lasted. Please tell us all about it. I'm going to keep working on my mic over here.
So
go ahead. You can do it. Go ahead. Pull it together. Like we told you, we're not cutting any of this. This is all staying.
So they stopped issuing the 18-month conditional license in 2013, basically to streamline it. So when I got my real estate license, I was only allowed 18 months before I had to complete yet more courses in order to qualify for my state exam to get my 4-year license. So that's how it worked, is you did your real estate principles, your real estate practice, you took a test to get your 18-month conditional license, and then you went to the state, and which at that time you had to drive to Sacramento to stand in line. I looked it up this morning. There was like over 50,000 people applying for their real estate license in 2004 and 5. Of which only like 46,000 were issued their real estate licenses. So I was among that 46,000 that got a real estate license issued to me in 2005. So I remember there was a ton of people standing in line. This is when the market is really high. And someone had told me to go on a sugar high. They're like, you want to have a little bit of energy, go on a sugar high. And I also did this research that
Israel, you should totally hire me. I just totally fixed the mic. I feel accomplished right now. I'm going to be Palm Creation's newest employee here pretty soon.
Okay, so Red Bull was originated in 1987. Did you know that?
No.
That's like a long time ago.
Man, she did some research for this for you guys today.
And so it actually didn't start becoming popular until the late 90s or early 2000s. So again, this is 2004 and 5 when I'm driving. I hadn't had a Red Bull ever. And because someone told me go on a sugar high, I'm like, oh, these are supposed to be like, energy drinks. So I'm just going to go ahead and drink some. I ended up drinking 4 Red Bulls within an hour's time from where I was all the way to Sacramento, my drive. I think I was living at that time either in Modesto or Manteca, and I drove from there to Sacramento, and then within that hour's time, I ended up drinking 4 Red Bulls. So I'm a talker in general anyways, but if you can imagine me, I almost wanted to, for this podcast episode, drink 4 Red Bulls, just so you guys could like have an idea of the level of insanity. But I literally felt like I was going to have a heart attack. So I remember standing in line, and whoever was adjacent to me was just getting an earful. I was like standing in line, so excited to get my real estate license. I was adamant I was going to get it because I didn't have money at that time to retake the test. I had no other options. I had no plan B, C. I was burning my boats. This is what I was going to do. In order for me to do eventually what I loved. So real estate wasn't my first career choice, but I needed to do it in order to get out of the situation that I was in. So I didn't have the financial means to do anything else. Everybody around me got to hear all the stories of my whole entire life. Then when I was in there taking the test, which I believe they allowed me 3 hours to take the exam, I almost went, and now you're fired, Frankie.
I know.
You jinxed yourself.
I have an idea.
Okay, like just holding it in between your legs. So when I was sitting there, I'm a slow test taker in general, and I remember saying I was going to just take up my paper and tell them that I was having a medical emergency and that I was going to be having a heart attack, and I could not complete my test. That's what the 4 Red Bulls did to me. And then like the whole drive home, I remember almost falling asleep because the huge crash that I had after that whole, I held it together. I finished the exam. There was only 20 questions that I didn't memorize or know. So I just filled those in, and then I ended up passing. But when I did that, when I had to call in day after day for weeks at a time to figure out if I passed or not, that is when I think it was like the 3-week period that I finally found out via phone that I passed my exam, and it was issued to me January 19th of 2005.
Oh yeah,
Okay. So that's what it was like for me getting my real estate license.
When I decided I wanted to get into real estate, I first had aspirations to be a rapper, and this is what's filling.
Oh my God.
This is filling that void right now. Being able to hold a mic like this, and even a mic stand.
It was Frankie with a Y
yeah,
at that
no,
time.
I'm just
Frankie
kidding.
with a
No,
Y.
there was no rapper aspirations, but yeah, completely different experience when I got into the business. It was like 8 years ago now, so 2016. 2016. I actually had a successful career. I was working for J.P. Chase. I was actually in training to be a district manager at that time, managing a branch, and I would bounce from office to office, managed multiple offices, and I was really content on my path and where it was going and what I was planning to do with my career with that company. And then unfortunately, they went through a big corporate restructure at the time when I was in a position for a promotion, which was going to leave me in the job that I was doing for the last 6 or 7 years. And the opportunity to grow and change and do something different was still going to be out there, but it was probably going to be a little bit longer time frame than I had originally anticipated. Graceland had been telling me that, I needed to get into real estate for a long period of time at that point. Had never really considered it. But with this new change in my current corporate job, I decided that, okay, maybe this is time that someone is telling me that I need to reassess what I've got going on. And Graceland had always said if I put in hour for hour in real estate, what I did with the banking industry at that time, as a salaried employee, that I would definitely be happy with my career choice. I'd see my kids more. Income would be consistent and, well, not consistent, but in line with what I was currently making at my current job. So I remember it vividly because at that point in time, it was the end of the year. We had just gotten our annual bonuses from Chase Bank, so I knew I had like a small little nest egg, and I knew I had just had the conversation with my manager about the big restructure and how the timeline was going to change, and things were still going to happen for me. It was probably just going to take a little bit longer. And in that meeting and in that moment, I was just like, you know what? I have a better idea. I think I'm just going to give my 2-week notice, and we will go from there. I think I'm going to try a career change. So I appreciate everything that you guys have done for me. I appreciate the experiences I've gained here. But yeah, I'm out of here in 2 weeks. I went home. I told Graceland that I had quit my job, which she thought I was joking, but surprisingly it was the truth. I hadn't even started my real estate courses yet. I didn't know how long it was going to take. I didn't know if I was going to pass the exam on the first try, but like Graceland mentioned, I was in a position where I wanted to burn my boats. I didn't want there to be any options. If this is the career path that I was going to take, this is how I wanted to move forward. So I wanted to just go 2 feet in 100% and make it happen. So I went home that night. I hopped online. I had some conversations with brokerages, and I was advised by someone who was working at Guarantee Real Estate at the time. They had got me connected with a recruiter who sent me through an online course. Online ED was the name of the company that I went through, and so I registered. I started taking all the courses to get the same, certificates that Graceland got, but I didn't get any cool certificates at the end. I just had like an online printout if I wanted to take and, print and have, but I didn't. I just left them there. But yeah, I took my courses. I went in. For me, the state exam was actually here locally, downtown. And they were definitely more frequent in regards to scheduling, so I had no issue or availability getting in. It was all through a computerized, standardized test. So yeah, I took my courses. I got through them quickly. I want to say within, I don't know, how many months? Probably maybe just like 2 or 3 months. I was able to get in and get registered for the state exam. Took my course, passed it on the first try. It's one of those things, though, that it's super nerve-wracking for someone when you have no other options and you have no other income coming in. I mean, I remember, so the funny thing about this, I don't know if it's changed because, again, it's different for everybody, but when I took the exam, at the very end, when you're done with your computer, you go up to this desk where this person is sitting who checks everybody in. And when you leave, they give you a piece of paper that's stapled together, which has your test results, whether you passed or failed or not. And they don't let you open it when you're there with everyone still taking their test. I was one of the first ones finished too. I remember, like, if not the first one, I was like in and out. And so then I started to question myself and double check on what was going on. I was like really nervous, but I got my thing. And right outside, there's the elevator to go back down to where, you know, you're going back to your car or whatever. But there's a couple benches right there by the elevator. And I sat down on those benches with that piece of paper stapled together. And I sat there felt for like an hour and a half. Like I was there for a long period of time, just kind of contemplating like, oh my goodness, if I didn't pass this exam, when's the next time I'm going to be able to get in? Where am I going to get income for the next couple of months? Like, what is the plan? So I started getting really nervous and having some anxiety at that point. So I sat there and just thought about everything. And then eventually I called Graceland and she's like, hey, how'd it go? I was like, oh, I don't know yet. I'm still sitting here. And she's like, oh, you're still taking your test? Did you have your phone? I was like, no, I finished my test like an hour ago. I'm sitting here in the lobby in front of the elevator holding my results. I haven't opened them yet. And I'm just, I don't know what's going to happen. She's like, are you kidding me? Like, open your results. Whatever happens, we'll be good to go. And then sure enough, I opened it and it confirmed that I had passed. And it was like this huge relief. And I'm like, all right, I can help people, buy and sell real estate. And I'm excited about the next steps. But, it was a very streamlined and simple process, nothing like what she described. And then when I got home, when she was talking about the conditional license, she's like, oh no, in 2 years I was like, no, this says I have a 4-year license. I'm good to go. There's no 2-year. It's 4 years. I'm good. And we're ready to go.
Like, I don't think so, but whatever. So I just let him do his own thing. And like I said, I didn't find out till recently that the whole 18-month conditional thing was no longer a thing. And then when I researched it, it was like it went away in 2013. So yeah, 2005 is when I got licensed. So it went from a big process of having to drive to Sacramento to California Association of Realtors to take your exam in person, in a room filled with people, hand in your test, and you don't find out for weeks, and you have to call a 1-800 number and put your information in to figure out if the computer's going to tell you passed or you didn't pass.
And, as technology evolves, and for people that are looking to get licensed in the real estate industry, who knows if that's a good or bad thing, right? Like when I look back at it, Graceland went to a real estate college, and where you talk about you have an instructor, you have someone you can ask questions to, you're reading materials, you're getting all this information and knowledge, which is very, I think, helpful. Even when I look back to Chase, I had to go through a management training program where they took me to classes right around the same time that she was. So it was in person. You had an instructor. They're teaching you how to be a banker. And then when I go into real estate, like I'm all on my own, and I'm taking this online exam and I'm taking these practice quizzes, but there's no support, no one you can ask questions to. You're just trying to figure it out. And I'm sure now it's probably gotten even more streamlined, more technology, more videos, and what does that look like for the next generation of real estate agents when they're going through the process? Like, it's one thing to pass the test and get your state exam. It's another thing to be a licensed real estate agent and go through the daily routine of what you're doing and being a successful agent and doing it in a way that is going to benefit your clients, benefit your business. And a part of me kind of wishes that I had to go to a school where I had someone who was a real estate agent or who had experience that you can ask questions about the everyday job. Because like I've told people since I got my license, it's definitely very different training to get your real estate license than it is getting out into the real world and actually helping people buy and sell real estate. Like there's a lot of knowledge that you get from the courses that you need to have, but it definitely isn't part of the everyday business of what you're doing. So I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse long term as far as how it is to get your license. I do feel it's easier, and I do feel that's kind of why you've seen an influx of agents in the market, because it's easier. But I'd also be curious at what the success and failure rate is from newly licensed agents and what it looks like for resources. But again, that's kind of where a good brokerage comes into play, and having a broker that you can have a conversation with, looking at trainings, looking at opportunities to really hone those skills, or agents in the office that have had success who are willing to kind of work with those newer agents. But that's probably a whole nother conversation in itself.
And I think pricing has changed too. I was able, like I said, my courses were done in a span of 3 weeks. So I had got my certifications in those courses in a 3-week period. And then I had to do a home study for my 18-month conditional for 6 weeks, I believe. But that was jumping back 19, 20 years ago. So I know for a fact that there are a couple places who still offer in-person opportunities to learn and get your real estate license. Then we jump back 8 years when Frankie did it, and Frankie said majority of courses were available online, and that's what what was recommended to him. And then this is a perfect time to introduce our guest speaker. And so our guest today,
we have a guest speaker or just a guest?
It's a guest.
Oh,
She's
nice.
going to come.
Sweet. Who's our guest?
So it is somebody who is going through. She visited the opportunity to get her real estate license a year ago, and then decided that maybe it was not the career for her because of the intense and tremendous non-support that you get doing it online. And then she decided, she thought she was going to do nursing, and then decided maybe she was going to give real estate another try.
You see how I asked who our guest was, and she's like making me wait with like this long story of like, let's talk about the experiences of what happened.
I would also want to describe how she affects people around her. So she is loved.
Great intro.
She's loved by almost everybody that she meets. I always tell her, like, she has a very genuine way of caring for people around her. And I think that people are very receptive to that. She's had a tough upbringing. She's pretty strong as far as not having a traditional upbringing. And you will know her very well because she is our oldest daughter, Nevaeh Martinez.
Oh, wow. She's fantastic. I love her to death. Of course, she's my daughter. But I didn't realize that she was going to be our first guest on this podcast. Interesting.
You thought it was just going to be
Well, I was like, man, they're getting this long introduction. And I was like, I'm going to have Israel make you do an introduction about me as your partner on this podcast. And I want like a long, lengthy, super awesome intro on what it's like to have to be your partner on this podcast. And sitting here on this couch. And
I tried to give you that little glimpse this morning, and you gave me the look like stop talking.
Well, that was probably not the approach that I would take to be introduced, but it's all good.
I'm like my husband.
Oh no,
handsome.
Where is our guest at?
Most amazing.
Is she here yet?
With
Nevaeh,
the dimples,
please
and the
get here before your mom makes this an uncomfortable situation.
If you haven't seen him, you should see him.
So Israel, I mean, I know you're off camera, but how do you, if you had to specify in like a few words,
why
don't you jump on while we're waiting for Nevaeh and tell us about your licensing experience? Yeah, we're gonna go.
How did you obtain your?
So you were recently licensed.
Yes, as of March 9th last year.
So how would you describe
March 9th of 2023?
Yes.
Oh my gosh! So you just hit your year mark.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And if there's people out there looking for a real estate agent, Israel's fantastic. Like, honestly, he just got licensed, but he's in the office, he's working, he's committed. Great on social media, as you can tell. I mean, obviously, he's working on.
He's got his first baby arriving.
Yeah,
and so he's definitely motivated, and he has the time right now he's grinding big time.
For sure.
So
yeah, and he has a level of dedication that sometimes it takes new agents a little bit to kind of get there and understand, but definitely someone to consider if you're looking to buy and sell real estate.
Was real estate always a career choice for you?
College was not an option for me, so I, as a desperate manner, I was like, okay, real estate is like my way to go.
So why wasn't college an option for you?
I was just not that good in school.
Really?
Yeah, I always was told that I always thought differently. Like, I had that entrepreneur mindset. Like, you know what? I don't want to be working for a boss type of thing. It's like I feel like I can make a name for myself.
I can relate. College wasn't for me either. I actually tried college. I went to City College.
Yeah, I tried.
I tell people all the time. I tried college for a week and a half. And by the middle of the second week, I was sitting, I think it was in a math class. And, you know, they have like the stadium seating and everyone was talking. And it was the middle of the class. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, I just had this epiphany. So I stood up and I started walking out. My professor's like, excuse me, where are you going? Because they didn't even know your names yet, because like it's so new. Yeah. I'm like, honestly, I don't know where I'm going, but it's not going to be here. Like, I appreciate the time, but this just isn't for me. You guys, best of luck.
And that's how Frankie is.
So for me, it was the exact same way. Yeah. It was about like this second week, and at the time it was COVID, so it was all computer based. And me and my girlfriend, at the time, we both had classes at the same time, and she just seen me close my computer. She's like, "What the class ended?" I was like, "No, I'm done. I can't do this. This is like making no sense for me. I can't do school." Yeah, and I went straight to the DRE website.
And there's so many different career paths, right? Like, and there's so many different ways that you can have success. And again, education is for some people, especially if you're getting into certain fields and things of that nature. But there's a lot to be said for like trades and, you know, getting into work experience and stuff like that. So that's kind of the path that I took.
And I never had an idea of real estate. Real estate was not like a thing that young people did in my generation. It was more of a, I guess, like a second career choice, you know, like when you retire and you still want to like work, kind of, you get your real estate license. Honestly, like I had no idea. My sister was in real estate and she was showing me, you know, her business and thought that it would be good for me to do it while I was still trying. So I graduated high school 2002. I did about a year of trying to do cosmetology school, and then I owed too many hours, and so I was like, how am I going to pay for this? And she suggested real estate, and she was already doing it, so she's like, this is what you need to do. So I, like, by accident got called into it. So how did you learn, like, about, even like you said you closed your computer and you went to the DRE website, like who planted the seed of real estate? Because like I didn't even know that it was a career choice.
So I think for me, like during COVID, that whole like entrepreneur hustle wave came out of nowhere, and just took over social media. And a big one was wholesaling real estate, and they made it sound so easy.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this thing's easy. I did a deal. I did one deal.
Oh wow!
Out in Needles, California.
And Needles.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm never gonna do this again.
Yeah.
I was like, I this felt so sketchy the whole time. I was not comfortable the whole way.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just do it the right way and do it properly with my license, because I did it without a license at the time.
Yeah.
So.
So how did you acquire that one deal?
So I was just calling around, and I saw this property had been on the market for a while, but it turns out it's because it's in Needles, California. It's legit middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And everything ended up going through. I was able to find an investor. It was like legit the last day, like, because on the contract I put, I'll find a buyer in 30 days. And it was on the last day. I had to beg this investor, please take this home.
Oh my
And he ended up doing it.
Wow.
And what was your profits on that one?
I made about $6,000 on that one.
I mean, hey, you made the $6,000
you start somewhere, and it's one of those things where, okay, it is possible. But I think to your point, when you're in an environment like that, and for some people, like I talk about, like investing in wholesaling and stuff like that, there's some people that's a skill that they have, and it's great. But for other people, like myself included, it can get nerve-wracking and it can be stressful, and it's one of those things where, again, if you're just getting into the business, it can be challenging. So for you, it was kind of like, okay, I want to do this, but I want to do this the right way. So how would you kind of describe the process in today's world for getting licensed? Like, where did you go? What courses did you select?
So
how'd you feel about it?
It was really simple at first, but then halfway through my courses, the world shut down. So COVID legit threw the whole thing off. So it turned a 3-month process into about a whole year and a half process, because DRE said we're not taking any test applicants. So DRE was closed, so you couldn't take any tests anywhere. And then I was doing it online through Real Estate Express. They don't exist anymore. Now it's Calibri Real Estate. But at the time, I was trying to get in contact with my instructor to get permission to open up the next course. But he's like, I'm out of office. I have COVID. So that ended up doing the whole thing. And yeah, it just turned a 3-month process into a really long year and a half. But eventually, when it came to testing day, I was like, okay. It's funny because it was me, and then it was like a 4-people gap. I think it was only like 12 people taking that test. That day.
Wow.
And I took it here in Fresno.
And was it similar to like my experience?
Exact same. And
where they give you the little folded up piece of paper and all that stuff.
It's funny. It's a funny story because Jenny, my fiance at the time, she dropped me off. She was like, "Okay, I'll be here when you're out, when you're ready." I was like, "It's gonna be a while." She's like, "No, I'll wait." So what's funny is that I didn't know is that while I was taking my test, she went to the nearest Walmart and she bought 2 cakes.
Oh.
One that says congratulations. And one that says better luck next time. So she got me 2 cakes.
That's so cute.
So
she was preparing for both.
I thought that, honestly, I think I was praying more than I was thinking during the test. because the words made no sense. The test, like, it sounded like gibberish on paper. And it's funny, I'll never forget. I told God, I was like, God, if there's a realtor that passed, that's dead, and it's an angel now, send them over here to take my test.
Aww.
And I was the first one to finish. I was like, you know what, this made no sense to me. And I walked out, got my paper, and I didn't open it. And it's funny, I recorded this. I love recording. I love capturing everything. So I recorded the moment we opened it in the car with me and Jenny.
Oh my gosh.
And she opened it, and she goes, oh my God, you passed. I was like, that's a messed up prank. Like, you can't be messing with me. She's like, no, you passed. I was like, for real? And you see it, and my deer number's right there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I passed, and then we both started crying in the car, middle of downtown, like two weirdos.
It's, well, no,
It's funny because there's this homeless guy in the bike passing around. Like,
it's one of those things, though, right? Like you said, when you have no other option, and you know this is what you're going to do. Like you said, school's not going to work. You want to get into real estate. Like this is the career path that you've chosen. There's a certain level of relief and emotion that comes with finding out that you've cleared that first milestone. And I think that's one thing that people need to understand. Like when you select a real estate agent, for us, it's one of those things like it's everything for us. It's how it's our career path. It's, you know, our retirement plan. It's how we're going to provide for our family. So the level of service that we want to provide our clients, you know, is second to none because this is what we've chose to do. You know, and I think it's important for people to understand like how emotional it can get because like now I have the opportunity to go out and help people, and you have this mindset like I want to do everything to provide the highest level of service because I don't have any other options. Like this is what I've chose to do, you know.
And also just at one point it felt like it was never gonna happen just because of the whole COVID thing, and it being because when I started the course, like okay, you'll have your license in 3 months. And now we're like at month 14. It's like, is this even like? At one point, I was like, I don't even think I'm ever gonna get my license. Yeah. But it ended up happening, and I was in DC at the time when I got the email saying, okay, you can take your test now. So it was nice.
Very cool. And now, and I do think for anyone who's an aspiring real estate agent who's gonna get to the state exam, and I don't know if it's different for everyone, but I totally felt like the exam itself is set up in a way to try and throw you off and make you panic. I felt like those first 50 questions like were not even in the course material that I took. And I was like, what is all this stuff? Like, are you kidding me?
It's crazy.
I don't remember any of this.
I feel like I was doing flashcards the day before, and I was like, oh, I know every answer.
Yeah.
This is perfectly makes sense. And the test, none of it.
But what I did find is after those first 50, like the last 100, they were things that I was comfortable with. So I'm like, I think they set this up to try and give you some anxiety, but as I started going through it, I felt like the test got easier towards 100%. The end. And I knew it was kind of a time thing, so I kind of skipped a lot of the first 50, and then I knocked out all of them, and then I went back. And I knew I had a ton of time. Like I said, I still finished really early, but yeah, when I first got into it, the first few questions I was like, oh, this is not.
Did you have any complications during your test?
No, mine actually went really smooth. I know some people in there did have some complications, but I didn't have any problems.
Because I had a problem where I was taking my test, and you know how they say put everything on the desk next to your computer.
Yeah.
And so I put everything. They give you like a little keychain with like your code, and I had my ID, but I had put my ID in my pocket.
Yeah.
And they were super big on like, do not touch your pockets, don't look down, only look at your computer.
Yeah.
And then so as we're going, I didn't know that they were gonna be scanning your ID just to check you in. And she comes up to my desk, half point. She's like, "Where's your ID?" And I was like, "It's in my pocket." She goes, "It's in your pocket?" And I was like, yeah. She's like, we're halfway through the test. You're not allowed to touch your pocket, and we need your ID. So I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, she's like, so it was like a whole scene, and she had to talk to like another person there. She was like, do we have when we take the test? And I heard it, and I was like, no, shoot, I don't want to retake the test. Like, I'm already here right now.
I'm already almost done. You know, I'm working.
So what they did is they made me stand up with my hands up as everyone's taking the test. It's me in the middle of the room. I'm standing up, hands up, and then they was like stand in front of that camera. So I'm standing in front of that camera, and they made me very slowly take out my ID out of my pocket, and like that, just so they have everything on film that I didn't cheat or get any answers or anything. It's wild.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, people don't realize, like, it's a state exam. Like, there's strict rules, and for the littlest thing, like, I've heard people that have had to retake tests or run into issues or didn't have the proper documentation, or to your point, looking down. Like, so I've heard the stories. Fortunately, like, mine went really smooth, but I'm glad you didn't have to retake the test. That would have been even more stressful.
Yeah, right? I was glad it was first try.
Yeah. Nothing like that for you, right? Because you got to...
I had to drive, and then I don't remember taking anything with me, and it was paper. It was like the little holes that you fill in, like the little circles that you.
What's it called?
Yeah, you have to use a pencil.
Oh, like a Scantron paper.
Yes.
Like number 2.
Yep.
Oh, that's way back. I'm sure a lot of people watching this are gonna be like, "What the heck is that?"
I know. So yeah, when people ask me, how did you get your real estate license? I'm like, it's probably like way different, but I do still tell people. And yeah, I think the time frames are probably totally different. I think oh, here comes our guest. She can sit.
Am I fired?
Tufted.
No, you're not fired, but you're going to have to go back behind the camera. We still need you to finish this. But thank you for sharing. And,
for sure, my pleasure.
And I know your business is flourishing.
I need to give you a special intro now because we have to.
Yeah, here we go.
So here she is.
Here
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
is our special guest. My
Nevaeh
daughter,
Martinez.
her daughter, our daughter.
I'm sweating. It's so hot.
She looks like she's sweating, even though she just got out of the car, which has AC. But that's a conversation for another podcast or after.
I hadn't turned it on. You didn't turn it on?
No, I had the windows, the passenger and the driver windows down because I like the breeze that's out today.
She wanted to be cool. She wanted to
I
go
like the breeze. I don't have them all the
blaring
way
her
down.
music,
It's like
windows
halfway.
down, hair blowing, probably listening to some banda music, and people are walking
Oh my
around
gosh.
like, oh my
There's
God.
been times I get in my car. I'm like, who put this music on?
So
loud.
Before we get going with the questions here, we already did a long introduction from your mother. She totally
The
hyped
script.
you up, so you're gonna have to be like on point, no pressure. But
And Israel also pushed his appointments back because we have taken all of his morning. But I do appreciate all the work that you provide.
Yeah, no, stay tuned though, because we are going to have some conversation in the future about how, as a real estate agent, your schedule is constantly changing and you've got to be able to adjust on the fly. Like, it gets hectic. So we do appreciate Israel for taking the time.
So for those of you who are just listening and not being able to see it, where can they see it live, Israel?
Yeah, where are we going to put this? It's going to be on
Okay.
YouTube
So
and Instagram.
and it's like a whole nother channel. It's not the Martinez Team Central Valley Realty.
It's we'll
maybe
figure
we'll do
that out.
both. Maybe.
But so we are talking about, you haven't got your real estate license yet.
No, I have not.
So we talked about your mom who got licensed in like the 80s.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
We talked about me, who was like a 2000s baby who got licensed. And then we talked about Israel, who just recently got licensed. So we've gone through the whole process, but you're actually currently going through licensing.
He did his a year ago, but his is a little bit different because he got slammed with COVID. And then he actually attempted wholesaling first before doing real estate. And you, of course, probably have thought about real estate as a career choice because you've been able to see me do it your entire life.
And then Israel was the only one who got frisked when he was in his licensing appointment because he left his ID in his pocket. So that didn't happen to either one of us. But so you're currently going through it. So Mom was talking about how you tried to do it initially. You signed up for some courses. Sounded
what
like you didn't like
discouraged
those.
you initially? Because you did start it. Talk about
And how did you? How did you feel about the
ago?
first one that you signed up for that we paid for? That we're not going to get refunded for. That's what happens when you have kids because she didn't finish it.
we get paid in different ways.
Yeah, and then but why you started that first time, and then why you decided not to move forward, and then what you did for the short span after.
Okay, so the reason why I kind of stopped or was discouraged from that is because that course, the first one that my parents bought me, was from Online ED, I believe. And that one, so my brain works very differently than my parents' brains work. And that one was like, you read it, and then it has like all the details though. So you read it, and then you take quizzes on it. And you can, on that one, it gives you the option to redo the quiz. Even if you do pass it, you can go back and retake it if you want. And then, of course, there's the final at the end that you have to take. It's just after a while, it got to the point where I was having to take my quizzes like 5 times in order to pass, in order to understand, like, oh, so this is what they meant, or okay, so this is important and this is not important. So that course was not for me.
Yeah,
personally.
and I had taken Online ED, and that's why I recommended it. But it's definitely like heavily reading based, and I don't mind reading and going through it like line by line. And I feel like the current generation is more video based or like different.
Well, I know
forms
that
of-
she was actually advised from somebody to like, don't read, just go to the questions, just memorize the questions. And that was how it was for me when I was studying to take my state exam. Was I had a CD-ROM, which I still have the CD-ROM, but not a lot of computers actually have a disc like place to insert it. Like I was so sad when I found out like they stopped doing those, and I couldn't like pass along like how like just use this CD-ROM.
Well, and Graceland thought that this was like the holy grail of real estate licensing courses.
Yes.
That she carried a CD-ROM for 20 years, guys.
Yes, I mean it's still
because people were gonna want it, and this was gonna be the gold standard for
because
getting licensed.
it was almost like a game. So they have like 6 different simulated state exams. You go through and you take the test, and it will tell you green if you got it right, red if you got it wrong, and you can do it over and over and over. And they say if you get 90% of the questions on these exams correct, then you're almost guaranteed to pass your state exam. So for me, because I'm very good with like memorization, it seemed like this should be easy for anybody to go through this and take over and over and over and be able to pass. And the questions were almost identical. Maybe a word would be changed, or the name of a person in a scenario would be different on the state exam. So that's why I was able, like, I knew when I took the state exam that I passed because there was only 20 questions out of like the 150 or 175 or whatever it is. We recently looked that up.
150.
Yeah,
it's
so
150.
there was only 20 questions, so I knew even if I got those wrong, which I was 100% sure I knew the answers to all the others, that I had still passed. And so
you went through online ED because I recommended it. Wasn't for you. Got discouraged. You decided you weren't going to do that anymore. And then what happened?
So then after that, there was actually a period where I was kind of doing nothing. And then after that, I started working for mom and dad for a little bit, if I remember. Or was that while I was doing that? I think it was while.
Yeah, no, I don't think you did. We talked about it, but you decided you were thinking you were going to be a nurse?
No, yeah. So I went to Fresno City College to do my prerequisites to get into nursing school. But that was this past year.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 years ago that I was doing those online courses.
She took a gap year, like most kids do, out of high school. She didn't do anything. She was hanging out at mom and dad's house, enjoying life.
Apparently.
Yeah. So, but you tried the nursing thing. You did that.
Yes, and then it came to the point where I was reaching my 20s, and my mom and dad wanted to point me in the right direction to get me started in life. And they were like, hey, like, you're getting kind of old now, so, you know, you got to either step up, like, figure out what you want to do. You can't. I think I was trying to figure out my way still, and they're like, no, you got to get on it. Get on the choo-choo train of success.
It's about time to pick a direction, yeah.
Yeah, they said pick a direction, and whatever you stick to it and get on the train. So
and like, Nevaeh is a Pisces. Her birthday is March 1st. So she's very emotional. So she's a water sign, and
none of us
also
pay attention to signs except for Graceland. So
yeah.
But yeah,
I could see like she's getting emotional when she's talking about feeling the pressure, or like I can see her feeling the pressure when she's saying mom and dad are making me choose a career choice. And
yeah, so at that moment, obviously nursing was still an option. You were in school, you were still taking your classes. And then what made you decide to be like, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to head back the other direction where I originally thought I was going?
It was actually because dad decided to put some bills on my plate, and I was like, oh, that was like not something I was ready for. So like taking all that in, I was like, okay, like having all the units, I was a full-time student, so having all the units that I currently had and working was a lot for me. So I was like, nursing school could probably wait if I still wanted to do that in the future, and this is something that I can do now that will get me rolling in the right direction.
And so you started a new course.
Yes.
Which course are you currently going through now?
I'm going through the CE. It is called the CE Shop, actually. And I really like this course because this one works a lot better for me. So the CE Shop actually is not heavy reading, or it's not memorization. It's more like understanding. Like they put you in real life situations of what it would be like talking to a client and what terms they're using. And also they test you along, so that way it's not like they give you a bunch of information and then are like, okay, here's a quiz at the end on all this information. And like the one that my parents had me do before was like I could be reading for 2 or 3 days and totally forget what I read at the beginning, and then I have a quiz and it's like on the part that I read in the beginning, so I was like, okay, I totally forgot. But this one tests you throughout as you're going along with it, which I really like. And they also have a schedule for you to stick to, so that way you're getting it done in a timely manner if you'd like.
Yeah, and I know also as you're going through, you know, your licensing and your training, you're also working as an unlicensed assistant for your mom.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the office, you're surrounded by real estate agents, you're learning the business. Do you find like that's beneficial to your training at all? Does it provide you a different perspective, like being in the business? Or?
I think if you have never been around real estate, or if you've never, like, you don't know what it's about, I think that's definitely something that could be beneficial to you, is to become a real estate assistant and get the feel for it, because my mom definitely puts me in situations where I'm like, oh, okay, like, if I were to do this, I would still continue doing it if I were to become, or not if, but when I become a real estate agent.
Yeah, like
know?
I can work up until this point, but then I have to have mom assist, and then I have to be aware. But I can observe, at least when it's my turn,
I
how this is gonna work.
do observe a lot, and then especially going with her to some appointments, I observe a lot there, how she talks to clients, how that interaction looks. I think that is very helpful too. But it's also something I've been around since I was very young, so I'm
Your whole entire life.
Yeah. And I think, you know, talking to Nevaeh, because I know we're coming towards the end of our show today, she has a very similar story, and I think you've heard the conversation from everyone that we've talked to today. Like, if you really want to do this, and this is really the career choice that you have, and you're really committed to providing the highest level of service to your clients out there, I think the one common thread is we all kind of had to burn our boats. Like, we all had to be 2 feet in, 100% committed. Gracelyn didn't know about real estate, but she went into, like, this was her only option. I quit my job. I knew this was my only option. Like, failure wasn't an option. Nevaeh was, you know, looking to get into nursing school. She was having success. She was getting great grades in school. She was taking the time, you know, full-time student. But once she realized, like, hey, look, no, it's time to start my career, she left that completely behind, and now is 100% invested in doing this and 100% focused. And I think the reality is, whether it's real estate or any career, if you make a decision, you've got to move forward with that.
That has to be that decision.
I mean, Israel went to school like I did for a couple days and decided that wasn't for him anymore. And same thing. So I think it's important for people that want to be successful in any industry, not just real estate. Like, you have to be 100% committed to that and becoming the best possible agent, doctor, you know, lawyer, whatever it may be.
Even trying to do both when I was doing both, no, like, real estate needed my 100% focus. Even though I'm not a real estate agent, just being an assistant required my focus.
Yeah, and you could have gone either way, and that's what Mom and I were saying even at that time. Like, hey, if you want to do nursing, you need to be 100% committed to that. If you want to get into real estate, like, you can't divvy your time up. It's just going to be too hard when you're trying to get established. But anything else you'd like to share about your experience so far and how things are going, or you'd like to add to, you know, the people listening in?
I would definitely say that networking, even though, like, my dad is actually not a very people type person, but my mom is, and I think that's what makes them a really great team, is that mom takes care of, like, client-based side and dad takes care of negotiation-based side. But seeing that, like, if I were to go off on my own for a little bit as a real estate agent, I think networking, I think I'd be good at what dad does and not more so, like, good at what mom
People
does.
love you. She does great with people.
Yeah, we have a bi-weekly mastermind that we run as well for our office, where we talk to agents. And one of the biggest messages that we have, and we'll probably leave you with this and then we'll move on, is there's no right or wrong way to real estate. There's so many different avenues and choices within this industry. I mean, there's people who work with investors. There's people who are first-time home buyer specialists. There's people who only work on the listing side. There's people who only consider themselves buyer's agents. But the reality is, there's so many different avenues. You need to find what you're passionate about within this business. And that's also where you need to focus your attention, so you can make sure that you provide the highest level of service, and you also have the knowledge necessary to make sure your clients are getting taken care of. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I mean, for all of us that are in here, and for all of the agents that I interact with, on a regular basis, you genuinely want to provide the highest level of experience to your clients to build that lasting relationship. And the only way to do that is to find the avenue that you're most comfortable with, get the knowledge necessary to provide that level of service, and ultimately, make sure that they are completely satisfied with the job that you did, and it's rewarding for everyone at the end of the path.
Yes, and I think moving forward, we're going to have a opportunity to answer questions. So if you saw anything in this video and want more clarification or links or information regarding what we've talked about today, you are more than welcome to call, text, email, find us on social media, or send us a comment below, and we'll be happy to address your questions.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate everyone who took the time to sit through and listen to us have this conversation. I'm very grateful for everyone who was here today. My daughter, Israel, my wife, she recently had a birthday, so happy birthday to Graceland as well. And yeah, we look forward to continuing this, as this is the first one in a long journey. And like I tell people on every meeting that we have, we'll continue to host podcasts as you continue to tune in. So we'll be here as long as you'll be here. Thank you, guys.
Yes, I think it's important to note, though, that we did start the podcast 5 years ago, and that episode is somewhere out there in the world.
It was not good.
And the comparison night and day. But we're not like following the trend. We have actually intended to do this for a long time, and hopefully we provide a lot of good content and information. So thanks for tuning in, and see you later.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.